Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Srimatan Swakata Krishna Punya Shavana Kirtana Udayantosto Yabhadrani Vidhunoti Sahishritam Nastapradeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloki Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. So today we will be reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 23. Uh, 1 second.
What said?
Yeah, verse 8. That's what I was going to check. Tena kramanu siddhena dvasta karma malasaya pranayamai saniruddha sadvargaschinna bandhana. Translation. By thus practicing severe austerities, Maharaj Prithu gradually became steadfast in spiritual life and completely free of all desires for fruitive activities. He also practiced breathing exercises to control his mind and senses, and by such control he became completely free from all desires for fruitive activity. So, continuing the translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. The word pranayama is very important in this verse because the Hatha yogis and Ashtanga yogis practice pranayama but generally do not know the purpose behind it. The purpose of pranayama or mystic yoga is to stop the mind and senses from engaging in fruitive activities. The so-called yogis who practice in Western countries have no idea of this. The aim of pranayama is not to make the body strong and fit for working hard. The aim is worship of Krishna. In the previous verse, it was specifically mentioned that whatever austerity pranayama and mystic yoga practices Prithu Maharaj performed were performed for the sake of worshipping Krishna. Thus, Prithu Maharaj serves as a perfect example for yogis also. Whatever he did to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. The minds of those who are addicted to fruitive activities are always filled with unclean desires. Fruitive activities are symptomatic of our polluted desire to dominate material nature. As long as one continues to be subject to polluted desires, he has to accept one material body after another. So-called yogis, without knowledge of the real purpose of yoga, practice it in order to keep the body fit. Thus they engage themselves in fruitive activities and thus they are bound by desire to accept another body. They are not aware that the ultimate goal of life is to approach Krishna. In order to save such yogis from wandering throughout the different species of life, the Shastras warn that in this age such yogic practice is simply a waste of time. The only means of elevation is chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. King Prithu's activities took place in Satya Yoga, and in this age, this practice of yoga is misunderstood by fallen souls who are not capable of practicing anything. Consequently, the Shastras enjoin Kala nastyeva 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 gatiranyata. The conclusion is that unless the karmis, jnanis, and yogis come to the point of devotional service to Lord Krishna, their so-called austerities and yoga have no value. Naradita. If Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is not worshipped, there is no point in practicing meditation or yoga, performing karma yoga, or culturing empiric knowledge. As far as pranayama is concerned, chanting of the holy name of the Lord and dancing in ecstasy are also considered pranayama. In a previous verse, Sanat Kumara instructed Maharaj Prithu to engage constantly in the service of the Supreme Lord Vasudeva. Yatpada pankaja palasa vilasa bhaktya karmasayam gratitam udgratayanti santaha. Only by worshipping Vasudeva can one become free from the desire of fruitive activities. Outside of worshipping Vasudeva, the yogis and jnanis cannot attain freedom from such desires. तद्वन्नारक्तमतयो यतयो विरुद्धा स्रोतो गणस्तं अरणं भज वासुदेव. Here, the word pranayama does not refer to any ulterior motive. The actual aim is to strengthen the mind and senses in order to engage them in devotional service. In the present age, this determination can be very easily acquired simply by chanting the holy names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी इति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पश्चात देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Hare Krishna, everyone. Before I start, I would like to please ask that you forgive me if I make any um, mistakes uh, based on what I share today. I've tried to just share what I have learned from um, other senior devotees' explanations on this verse and other topics, and I'd like to seek all your blessings so that I can represent that information correctly. So let me get started. So today we read a really powerful verse from the fourth canto that we're continuing, and it's given us an insight into what's the real meaning of yoga and self-discipline, which may be different from what one would naturally think. So the verse describes how Maharaj Prithu, even though he was a powerful and capable king, he took up these severe austerities and gradually became fully fixed in spiritual consciousness. And it specifically mentioned he practiced breathing exercises, pranayama, and they were not for just fitness or stress relief, but they were to control his mind and senses. And through this process, he became completely free from all material desires, especially the fruitive desires. So, this might sound quite distant from our daily lives, but this verse is actually relevant for us today because it reveals the true purpose behind all spiritual practices. And the purport by Srila Prabhupada makes the clear distinction between real yoga and the modern, watered down version of it that we see, taught by so many different people and practiced by so many different people. So today, and and whatever people are practicing modernly as yoga, it's it's still beneficial, but uh people are only getting half of the picture, right? So today, when we hear the word pranayama or yoga, it's mostly associated with health, posture, or calming the mind. But Prabhupada points out that the goal of yoga is not just to become relaxed or fit. The actual aim is to purify the mind so that it can focus on Krishna. So, in fact, we see here that Maharaj Prithu performed all his austerities, breathing practices, and meditation, and all of it only had one goal, which was to worship Krishna. He wasn't interested in showing off his yogic strength and posting it online and going to competitions or gaining mystic powers. His heart was just fixed on pleasing the Lord. And that's the difference between spiritual and material effort. Even if we're doing something simple like controlling our breath or waking up early like everyone here is doing, um, that's all fine, but it should be done with the intention of pleasing Krishna, and then it becomes spiritual. On the other hand, if one is doing all these complicated yoga poses and strict rituals just to keep the body fit or impress others, it remains in the category of fruitive activity. And Prabhupada explains that fruitive activities or working hard just to enjoy the results are signs of unclean desires. And they stem from a place where we want to, dominate materially and enjoy independently of Krishna. But this doesn't bring true peace or liberation. It's only temporary. And as you all know, it forces us to take birth again and again in different bodies. And even these yogis who are seemingly so detached that we see, in different holy cities in India and, different ashrams around the world, they often remain stuck in this cycle of birth and death. And that's why scriptures clearly say that in this age of Kali, this kind of yoga without devotion is a waste of time. Instead, it says, Kalo nastyeva 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 gatiranyata. There's no other way, no other way, no other way than chanting the holy names of the Lord. So this is where we get the big realization that chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is also a kind of pranayama. So when we chant sincerely and attentively, our breath naturally becomes regulated, and the mind also becomes calm, and we engage our senses in hearing the sound vibration. But what's most important is that this chanting will actually awaken our dormant love for Krishna, and it'll purify the heart with all the pure polluted desires that it has. So, for example, suppose someone is trying to reduce their anger. They may sit down and do some breathing exercises like inhaling and exhaling slowly, and that can help temporarily for a few minutes. But the moment someone from the outside comes and irritates them or something goes wrong, the anger comes back. And that's because those practices only suppress the symptoms. Now, someone who is able to wake up every day and make the practice of chanting Hare Krishna sincerely or reads a Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam, over time, they're able to actually stop reacting to the same triggers if they do all this faithfully. And that's because chanting doesn't just calm the surface, it actually um, reminds us of our eternal position, and it cleanses the heart and it changes our consciousness. And that's why Prithu Maharaj is such a great example for us. He shows that the real purpose of all this discipline and meditation is not for self-glorification or stress relief, but is to engage our mind and senses and body in devotional service for Krishna. So we should also slowly shift from fruitive activity to devotional activity and see the difference. So that means that instead of just doing things for personal gain, we try to connect our work, our studies, our talents, and everything to pleasing Krishna. For example, instead of studying hard just to prove something to others, we can think that we want to gain knowledge so that I can serve Krishna better. Or if someone's interested in fitness, they can think, let me take care of this body so I could use it to serve the devotees and do more seva. And that doesn't end only on the level of thought. One should actually, if they're interested in fitness, so much take care of this body to serve Krishna, and not only do that by going to the gym, but also, coming to the temple and doing some menial physical service for Krishna, uh, and, taking the time to actually do those service activities. So, yeah. And even these simple intentions like this, these simple thoughts that we can give ourselves throughout the day can make a huge difference in our consciousness. So second, we can incorporate pranayama in the way of bhakti. And Prabhupada mentions this in many places, and currently uh, Satchidanand Maharaj also um, speaks a lot about pranayama when chanting, leading kirtan, or before starting any spiritual activity as a way to regulate our senses and completely focus on the spiritual activity. So here, Prabhupada mentions instead of trying to control our breath artificially, we can chant attentively. So when we chant on beads or sing kirtan with attention, our breath naturally aligns, and the sound vibration will carry our consciousness toward Krishna. And this is the most natural form of spiritual breathing, and it's accessible to anyone. And third, we need to let go of the need to impress others with their sadhana. So Prithu Maharaj, even though he was a king and known by everyone, and he didn't do austerity to, like I said, post on social media or prove his seriousness to the world. He did it with love and humility. In the same way, we don't need to show off how spiritual we are. So whatever practice we take up, whether it's chanting, waking up early, reading scripture, it should be between us and Krishna. And that sincerity is what pleases him. And this doesn't mean that we shouldn't encourage others or try to be an example to others. But, everything should be done in its own way based on time, place, and circumstance. So lastly, we should remember that the soul by nature is active and has a desire, right? And we can't stop desiring. But we should redirect our desires towards the original one, which is a desire for love for Krishna. And instead of trying to kill all desires, like some yogis suggest, we can transform them. And we see this mentioned in every class, right? That we cannot just let go completely of desires, like some philosophical groups do, like, the Buddhists, of just letting go of all desires, understanding that everything is nothingness, and then, merging with the Brahman. Um, we don't, uh, so instead of trying to kill all these desires, we need to transform them. So the desire to learn can become the desire to understand Krishna. The desire to serve or do work becomes bhakti. And that's the safe and joyful way to do this. So in conclusion, Prithu Maharaj's story reminds us that real yoga means connecting everything, our body, breath, senses, mind, and desires to the Supreme Lord. And in Kali Yuga, we don't need to sit silently in caves and do difficult breathing exercises. We just need to chant sincerely the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. And this is the highest pranayama and the most effective austerity. And if we follow this, that's the surest way to purify our heart and reach Krishna. So that's all I have um, to say for today. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and please forgive me if I made any short.